Hi, I'm McKenna Lees. I'm a designer, I'm a developer, and I'm not a user researcher. But here is my presentation, my Pechakucha, on what I learned from user research, what I want to try for next time, and how much I enjoyed it. First stop is fieldwork, the first installation of user research, and quite possibly the hardest part about this entire project. Here's a couple of things I learned. Don't assume what is happening is actually what's happening. I had a lot of instances of thinking something that I observed was real and true because my own eyes had seen it, and that wasn't always the case. People aren't as creeped out about you watching them as you thought they would be. I thought for observations that people were going to find out that I was watching them and get really creeped out and be like, oh, you should delete all your evidence. And that wasn't the case. People were actually interested in my work because it's academic experience for user research. And that was the final takeout from that. Without video, fieldwork is difficult to document and call upon. Fieldwork is probably the most difficult because I didn't have anything tangible to really go back upon. I just had my own handwritten notes and kind of my own details for who I was watching and what they were doing at what time for long periods of time. So without video, it was really difficult to call upon my evidence and actually think of it as tangible. Interviews, the second installation of user research, quite possibly my favorite. People like to talk about themselves, their craft, or their passions. People that are interviewed were all UW students. They're all trying to find their way in the world, and they're all trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. So people like to talk about themselves, which was a no-brainer that I think I realized pretty late on. But since I was in the makerspace, they love talking about their craft, their passions, what they like to build and make, and what they wanted to do with their life, which was something that I didn't assume at the beginning. Interviewees are more willing to give you their opinion and outlook than you think they are. I had a difficult time thinking I needed to give out compensation for my interviews, thinking that half an hour of somebody's time was going to be a lot of chunk of time. And that wasn't the case. People were a lot more willing to give me their thoughts without any sort of compensation. Assumptions are harmful even for non-researchers. I had an interviewee who had some kind of malicious assumptions for the makerspace that really went against how resourceful and friendly the actual space was itself. And I kind of had to prove to them that wasn't always the case and that everyone had to learn from somewhere. And it was interesting to be able to prove that within an interviewee and kind of get them to think from my perspective as an outsider. Surveys, the last and final installment of user research, and a quantitative part of it. Survey respondents always need a blank. I learned this from having 50 plus respondents to a survey and thinking that you will give them up to like 6 or 7 items for choosing for a certain question and thinking that you crossed all the bases, when in actuality, everyone's different and you shouldn't just limit a survey respondent to what you think the item is. They always need a blank space. Cross-analysis of survey information takes time and intent. It really took an intentional person to think, okay, what do I need to cross-analyze and what survey information is going to be the most important before I actually go and conduct the survey. If you're trying to prove something with numbers, try a survey. Surveys are quantitative and they're great if you're trying to make charts, analyses, and graphs to actually prove your demographic at hand or their opinions, beliefs, and things that they commonly do. It was important for that reason because it felt the most tangible. Overall, these are a couple of my opinions, what I'd like to do more next time, what I'd like to improve on, and my opinions on user research in general. So here we go. User research can be incredibly isolating. I felt this from the very beginning of the quarter when Sarah said that with this project we had to work alone and we couldn't depend on each other and blah, blah. And it was just, I was working alone for the majority of the quarter and I didn't get to bounce my opinions off of anybody other than maybe my TA for a little bit. So I felt very isolated during this process and I hope that's not what user research is like in the real world for that reason. I was never quite sure what was good evidence and what wasn't. I never knew how to differentiate between what I was learning, thinking that was a good piece of evidence that I needed to include and it was crucial, versus something that might have been really small and really minuscule. All those things were difficult to differentiate. I enjoyed interviewing the most because it was a happy medium. It really was. Observations were a little creepy sometimes in field work, and people could see that I was seeing them and maybe ask a couple questions and realize that I was actually observing them and they weren't totally creeped out, but at the same time, it was difficult. Surveys were the complete opposite of that spectrum. I got no FaceTime with people. I just got a bunch of quantitative data and it was useful and it was evidence, but I didn't get any FaceTime. And interviews were that happy medium between both of those. I got to meet people, they got to know me by name, they weren't creeped out that I was just watching them, and then I got to interview them in a real experience. I wished this could have been a partner project. I wish this from the very beginning. That's what comes with feeling isolated. And in general, I just wished I could have worked with another person, bounced ideas off people. That's how I always do my projects for HCD, so I wish it could have been that way. My last and final topic, I still don't like user research, but I do recognize how important it is. I always have, I always will. I know that it's very important for designs and developing and all the things that I do like to do in the field of HCD, but I don't like to do it myself. It's very isolating. I tried my best this quarter, and that's how I feel about it. So, thank you for watching my Pechakucha. I'm going to stop sharing.